All right, welcome everyone. So, in business, pretty much every big decision you're going to make is a calculated risk, right? But, and this is a big but, in a world where everything is constantly changing, how can you be really sure your calculations are even right? Well, today we're going to dive into a really powerful mathematical tool. Think of it as a way to cut through all that noise, to let you isolate what's truly driving success, and ultimately to make these incredibly precise, almost surgical choices.
So let's start with this fundamental question. I want you to really think about this for a second. Imagine you're running a business. Everything, and I mean everything, is in motion all the time. Your customers, their tastes are changing. Your competitors, they're launching new stuff. Your supply chain, costs are going up and down. It's chaos, right? And right in the middle of all that chaos, you decide to make a change. You do something. The real question is, how do you know if what you did actually worked? How can you possibly measure the true impact of that one single thing you did?
Okay, let's make this concrete. Your company's profit. It isn't just some random number that appears at the end of the quarter. No, it's what we call a function, and that's a key word here. It's the direct result of a bunch of different inputs or variables. So for our discussion today, let's imagine our profit depends on three really critical things: the price you set, how much you're spending on ads, and what it costs you to get your raw materials. Now, here's the thing. You tweak any one of those, just one, and that final profit number is going to change. They are all linked together.
And this brings us to the classic management dilemma, a problem you will face. Picture this. It's the start of Q3. You're feeling ambitious. You decide to do two things at once. First, you bump up your price by, say, 5%. And at the exact same time, you launch this big, flashy new ad campaign. Fast forward 3 months. You look at the numbers, and hey, profits are up 10%. Awesome, right? But hold on a second. What actually caused that? Was it the price hike? Was it that amazing ad campaign? Maybe it was a little bit of both. If you can't answer that question with certainty, you can't repeat your success. You're basically flying blind. You're just guessing. And guessing is not a strategy.
So, right, how do we solve this puzzle? How do we stop guessing? We need a new way of thinking, a new model for untangling all these different threads. And it all starts with a simple but profound idea that we're going to call the isolation principle.
The logic behind this is, well, it's incredibly powerful in its simplicity. So, step one, you've got to identify all the variables that affect your outcome. For us, that's price, ad spend, and material costs. Got it? Step two, you choose just one of those to adjust. Let's say we're going to focus on price for now. And now, step three. Everyone listen up, because this is the absolute key to this entire concept. You have to hold all the other variables constant. You freeze them. You pretend they can't change. So, in our example, ad spend, locked in. Material costs, not moving an inch. They are held constant. And then, and only then, do you get to step four. You measure the precise impact of your single adjustment. With everything else frozen, you can see exactly what changing the price does to your profit. What you get is a pure, clean, uncontaminated measure of its impact. No more guesswork.
Now, I want to be really clear about something. This isolation principle, it's not just some nice little theory or a clever idea you bring up in a boardroom meeting. No, this is a real, rigorous, formal mathematical technique, and it comes to us from the world of calculus.
And the formal name for this technique is the partial derivative. Let's unpack this definition, because honestly, every single word here is important. Okay, so the rate of change. What does that mean? It's just how fast your output, in our case profit, is changing. Simple enough. Next part, of a multivariable function. That's our profit equation, right? The one with multiple inputs like price and advertising. And then, here it is, the magic phrase, the part that unlocks this whole thing, when you allow only one of the variables to change while holding all others constant. You see? That right there, that is the mathematical embodiment of our isolation principle.
And you can see here our source material boils it down perfectly. The whole goal is to, quote, analyze how changes in one variable affect a function while holding other variables constant. It is the mathematical engine that lets us answer that critical question: what happens if we only change this one thing?
All right, so that's the theory, that's the math. But I know what you're thinking. Professor, how does this fancy calculus concept actually help a business make more money? Great question. Let's move from the calculus to the capital and talk about some real-world applications.
We're going to focus on two of the biggest, most critical areas where this tool gives you a huge strategic advantage. First, optimizing your pricing, and second, optimizing your costs.
Okay, let's really compare these two worlds. On one side, you've got the world without partial derivatives. How do you set prices? Well, honestly, it's a lot of intuition, a lot of guesswork. The manager says, let's try raising the price by 10% and, I don't know, see what happens. You get a result, sure, but it's messy, it's noisy. You don't know why it happened. Now let's look at the other side, the world with partial derivatives. Here, your approach is surgical, it's data-driven. You calculate the partial derivative of your profit function with respect to price, and what you get back isn't a guess, it's a hard number. A number that tells you, for every single dollar you increase the price, your profit will change by exactly this much, assuming everything else stays the same. You've just found your price elasticity. It is no longer a guess. It's a known, actionable piece of intelligence.
And this exact same precision applies to managing your costs. Now, a very common mistake, and I want you all to remember this when you're managers, is that under pressure, people reach for a blunt instrument. They say, things are tough, cut all department budgets by 10% across the board. This is so dangerous. Why? Because it assumes all costs have the same impact on the business. You might just cripple the R&D team that's working on your next big product. The smarter manager, the one who understands this concept, uses a scalpel instead of a hammer. They ask, okay, what is the partial derivative of our profit with respect to, say, our material costs? And the answer gives them the exact impact. They'll know precisely how a 5% cut in materials will affect the bottom line, if labor and everything else stays constant. This lets you make smart, targeted cuts that don't accidentally wreck the business.
And that's what this all comes down to, this one powerful idea. It doesn't matter if we're talking about price or advertising or costs. The immense power of this whole sophisticated tool comes from its relentless, laser-like focus on the impact of just one single variable, isolated and understood with perfect clarity.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. Let's talk about the path to optimization. Why does any of this really matter for you? What's the big takeaway here from making better business decisions?
It's because this tool, this way of thinking, allows you as a business leader to make the single most important leap in all of strategic thinking. It lets you move from correlation to causation, and those are two very different things. See, correlation is easy. It's just noticing two things happen around the same time. Hey, we launched that ad campaign, and look, our profits went up. That's correlation. But causation is knowing, with mathematical certainty, that the ad campaign caused a specific measurable part of that profit increase. And that knowledge, my friends, is the foundation of any real strategy.
So here's the bottom line, the point I really want you to take away from our time today. The ability to isolate one variable, to analyze its specific impact, that is the absolute bedrock of intelligent management. It is how you stop hoping and guessing and start building a real strategy based on hard data and evidence. This is how you make smarter, more precise, and ultimately way more profitable decisions.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to think about. As you go on to build your careers in whatever business you end up working for, or maybe even creating yourself, what is the one single factor? Maybe it's price, maybe it's a specific product feature, a particular cost, a marketing channel. What's that one thing that, if you could perfectly isolate it and understand its true impact, would be the most critical driver of your success? Because your ability to find that factor and then use the tools we've talked about today to analyze it, that's what's really going to set you apart.